Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me today is a special guest host. You might know him from references as friend of the pod, Phil. So here's Phil, your guest host, who is a hardcore Ohio State Buckeye fan. Phil, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Excited for the week.
Yeah, we have some great. I'm pumped too. It's a great week. You got Thanksgiving and then college football all weekend. It's about as good as it gets, really.
Yeah. Turkey, football, all the family, all the stuff. Drinking. Yeah. It's going to be a blast.
What's your Thanksgiving setup this year? Are you hosting? Are you going out? Are you going to to a relative's? Like, what's the plan?
Currently the plan is just staying at home. Going to go out to eat because I cooked turkey for 15 preschoolers today, and then we're gonna end up just kind of hunkering down and watching some football all weekend.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love Thanksgiving. It is a great time of year. I get particularly. I'm doing it. I have it kind of easy this year. My sister is hosting, so I just have to show up. I still have to decide what I'm going to make as a side, so that's something I have to come up with. So if you have any suggestions for that, you can let me know. But yeah, I have to do something. But yeah, she's hosting, so that takes a lot of the work out of it. I appreciate her doing that. Makes it easier for me. So that's nice. It's going to be a really smooth, I think, Thanksgiving that way, which is awesome. And then my only disappointment is that the Egg Bowl is no longer on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was kind of a kick of the shorts. I didn't realize till about 2 days ago that it wasn't until Thanksgiving, or it was on Black Friday, which is going to make Black Friday viewing even tougher this year, I think.
There's so many good games on Black Friday.
So many good games.
So many. But we'll get into that right now. So let's do it as long as we're on the subject. So we are previewing the final week of the regular season, rivalry week, really the greatest week of the entire college football season. And starting off, these first games are played on Black Friday, November 29th. And first up, we have the 6-5 Minnesota Golden Gophers heading to Madison to take on the 5-6 Wisconsin Badgers. This is an 11 a.m. game on CBS. Cue the horns. The line is Wisconsin by 2. So just right off the bat, the high in Madison for Friday is 23 degrees.
And so snow.
It's gonna be a chilly one. It's gonna be really interesting, as this game so often is. So this game, despite the cold weather, is always heated. It's the most played rivalry in the history of major college football. Wisconsin leads the all-time series by a single game, so Minnesota can tie it up with the win. There's a lot on the line in this game, Phil. First, let's start with the obvious. Wisconsin needs to win to avoid missing a bowl game for the first time in 22 years. That's crazy. Wisconsin was a very consistent program under Barry Alvarez, under Brett Bielema, and Paul Chryst. The athletic director fired Paul Chryst because they wanted more success, despite the fact that Chryst never won fewer than 9 games in a season. And it worked out, it looked like. Wisconsin got their top target, widely considered the best coach available in that coaching cycle, then Cincinnati coach Luke Fickell. Fickell was fresh off a successful run at Cincy, in which he became the only coach to take a group of 5 team to the 4-team college football playoff. It was a monumental accomplishment. It seemed inevitable that a great coach at a good job was going to be successful. But now, nearly 2 years in, Fickell has not yet been a success. He went 7-6 last year, and now he needs to beat Minnesota to avoid going 5-7 and missing a bowl game. That's not the expectation at Wisconsin. Fickell has already fired his OC, Phil Longo, and is rumored to be firing or demoting his DC any day now. So next year will be a make-or-break year in Madison. The Badgers would love to make a bowl game and get the momentum going in the right direction heading into next season. As for PJ Fleck in Minnesota, it's been a year of what-ifs. The Gophers are 6-5, but they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory against Penn State, Michigan, North Carolina, and Rutgers. Minnesota's sitting here thinking they could easily be 8-3, 9-2 right now. That said, they gave number 4 Penn State all they could handle in a heartbreaking 26-25 loss on Saturday. PJ Fleck needs to win a rivalry game in order to quell the doubters in his fan base and get to a bowl destination that's better than going to Detroit yet again. After 2 disappointing years in a row, Fleck needs to win to appease the fan base. Bottom line, it's going to be an extremely long offseason for whoever loses this game. The good news for Wisconsin is that QB Braden Locke, who has struggled mightily at times this year, had a really good game against Nebraska last week, completing 2/3 of his passes, which is much higher than the 55% he's averaged for the year. Minnesota has an extremely good secondary. So who wins that battle? Is Wisconsin able to move the ball through the air successfully? Or do Minnesota's elite DBs make pass breakups and interceptions on Saturday? I'll be watching that battle closely. But the real issue for me is how well does Wisconsin run the ball? When their offense is humming, it's because running back Tawi Walker is getting his. Minnesota's done a pretty good job in run defense the second half of this year, but can they stop Walker? They will need to slow him down considerably if they want to have the upper hand in this game. For the Gophers, we know what they want to do. They want to complete enough passes to star wide receiver Daniel Jackson, to wide receiver Elijah Spencer, and to their running backs to open up the running game. I think the keys are star running back Darius Taylor and top wide receiver Daniel Jackson. Can they get those guys the ball in space? When they do, will they make people miss? Both are highly capable of that, but we need to see it. And QB Max Brosmer usually has good ball security this year, but he coughed it up twice against Penn State with both a fumble and a pick. He's got to take care of the ball this week on the road in the cold. So, Phil, what do you think about the battle for the Axe?
I think it's the toss-up. I think it's the most toss-up it's been in a few years. I think if it's your DBs, Minnesota's DBs against Wisconsin's passing attack, I take Minnesota all day. But I just don't trust if it gets close, especially late third into the fourth quarter, that PJ Fleck is going to be able to like lock it down and not go to his conservative football and kind of get Minnesota in a pickle. That's my big thing. I think this really is. I think Fickle needs the win to go bowling. I think it's really important for him. I think PJ needs the win to kind of cement. It's next year's going to be potentially rough for Minnesota. So I think this is going to be one of those ones where I think Minnesota needs to win more than Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is in the middle of a rebuild.
Yeah, I agree.
And, Wisconsin doesn't really look like they know what they're doing. So I don't know. I guess if I had to guess, I'd say it's pretty even, what is it?
Yeah.
50, it's like 50-50 down the middle on the predictor. So I hate Wisconsin. I hope Wisconsin loses, but at the same time, I think this is going to be one of the best games of the entire week. I think it's probably one that everybody should watch. If you're a fan of college football and rivalry games, this one's going to be good.
Oh yeah, it's going to be
maybe the most evenly matched.
Yeah, it's what's interesting to me, I say, is that the bottom line when I get to it is that Wisconsin has lost 4 games in a row, and their offense is a total mess. Minnesota's lost 2 in a row, but they've been a little more balanced than Wisconsin has. I think the Gophers have the better skill players overall, and they have the better defense. I think the Gophers should win this game. I'm actually kind of surprised Wisconsin's favored, but it's a rivalry game and anything can happen. And Minnesota has, choked in some close games this year. So I can see thinking that they're going to lose another close game. I think the Gophers come to play, though. I think PJ knows he can't go. If Minnesota loses this game, Fleck will be 0 for 3 in rivalry games this year.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, I think that Fleck's going to get severely uncomfortable with the noise if he loses this game.
Yes, that's what I'm saying too. It's going to be a long offseason. I
mean, there's that proverbial hot seat that he's apparently never been on, but I could see that seat getting pretty warm for him after if there's a loss on Friday.
Yeah, no, I think it'll bring up uncomfortable. If you beat Wisconsin, you get some momentum, you can still win 8 games. It's not a great season, but it's a season that's not a total failure. If you lose to Wisconsin, you go 6-6. That feels rough. 7-5 is just a lot better than 6-6. It's just a big difference.
I think for Wisconsin, if Walker's not running it well, it's going to be a really hard day for them. If he gets out and he can get like 3 yards a carry, even maybe bust a couple for like 5 or 6, it's going to open up. Lock's not great, but I mean, any quarterback's a lot better if that running back's moving the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And Locke did play better last week against Nebraska than he normally plays. So he's coming off a game when he played, pretty well. The way Wisconsin collapsed on defense last week, that was crazy. Because coming off the Oregon game, I was like, oh, the Wisconsin defense is rounding into form. They figured some stuff out, blah, blah, blah. And then Nebraska put up 45 points on them. So I'm having a hard time getting that out of my head. And go ahead.
I mean, the Wisconsin defense, I think I was talking to you about it actually after the game, looked like Luke Fickell defense in the Oregon game.
They did in the Oregon game. They looked really good.
And man, I don't know. I mean, what a bad, I mean, I just think 2 of the worst teams in the Big Ten right now, Wisconsin, Nebraska last week, that was just an ugly game across the board, but their defense did not show up. That's kind of maddening about Fickell. I mean,
yeah.
Is he too consumed with the head coaching stuff to actually be influencing defense? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, maybe the most sought after coach 2-3 years ago, maybe for the last 4 or 5 years, one of the most sought after coaches. And now he's kind of like, I mean, if he doesn't make it work here, he's going to Group of 5 or he's going to end up, as a DC somewhere again.
I mean, it seemed like Luke Fickell a couple of years ago, I would have said it's only a matter of time before he's the next coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And now he's in a place where he needs to win next year or he's going to lose his job. With 2 new coordinators, he's got to win next year. So the pressure, I think there's more pressure on Fickell overall, but I do think I'm with you. If PJ Fleck loses this game, then it's going to be a long offseason. The fan base is going to be disgruntled, and he's going to be closer to the hot seat than he will be if he wins this game. It's that important of a game, and I think PJ Fleck knows it. So I think the Gophers come to play. I wonder where Wisconsin's heads are at with so much upheaval and strife, both on and off the field. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. I think it'll be really close. But I just think the difference in this game is this Gopher defense. Minnesota has the 15th rated scoring D in the country. I think they'll do a good job against a Wisconsin offense that has been wildly inconsistent. I believe Minnesota is the better team, and I have the Gophers pulling away late. So I have the Minnesota Golden Gophers 27, the Wisconsin Badgers 16.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I don't know about a score prediction, but I think if it's close late, that's when I'm going to get. If I was a Minnesota fan, I'd be getting really nervous.
Yeah, I think PJ's got to come out hot and get ahead right away.
Yeah,
away.
You don't want to play from behind.
No.
You don't want it to be like sloppy off the get go. You need to make sure you're honestly like pass the ball to open up the run a little bit.
Yep.
And then like I said, I think if it comes down to to their offense versus your defense, I'm taking your offense or I'm taking your defense all day. But I don't know. I guess I think it's going to be tight though. I think it's going to be. I could see you guys being away or them being away and whoever coming back late.
Yeah, I think it'll be close. I think Braden Locke's going to throw a couple picks. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that's going to be the difference in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 10 on the season already. It's going to be. He's pretty. I don't know. I just think that
I just don't trust him. I don't
trust anything about Wisconsin's offense. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's why I'm going to give Minnesota the edge. But it's a rivalry game. I mean, and the importance of the game for both people. Maybe Wisconsin doesn't need to go bowling this year. I mean, maybe it's better if they lose the game anyway. So it's never better to lose a game. But I mean, they win this game to go potentially have a losing record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not good.
No, I hear you.
I trust PJ. I trust PJ a lot more, I guess. Yeah,
this feels like a circle the wagons game, and I just think PJ is going to circle the wagons and find a way to play well and win. And he knows he doesn't want it to be close late, so I think he's going to go for the jugular, or if he can. So we'll see, though. Again, I won't be shocked if Wisconsin wins. That's for sure. even with my score prediction as it is. It's a rivalry game. Anything could happen. But I just have a feeling the Gophers are going to come out and play really well. All right, moving on. Also on Black Friday, we have the 6-5 Nebraska Cornhuskers going to Iowa City, take on the 7-4 Iowa Hawkeyes at Kinnick. This is a 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. The line is Iowa by 5.5. Iowa and Nebraska both have good defenses, although statistically Iowa's is a little better. Former Iowa starting QB Cade McNamara said in an Instagram post last week that he was going to play against Nebraska. However, it appears that isn't going to happen. So for Iowa, it'll once again be relatively inexperienced sophomore Jackson Stratton. So to me, that means that Iowa, which already doesn't throw the ball very much, is going to throw the ball as minimally as possible. Luckily, Iowa has the best running back in the Big Ten, in my opinion, in Caleb Johnson, and the backup Moulton isn't bad either. This isn't going to be complicated. Iowa's going to try to beat Nebraska into submission with the running game. They're going to bet that if they give Johnson 30-plus carries, he's going to get his yards, and he's going to score a couple of times. That's the plan in Iowa City. As for Nebraska, new offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen unlocked something against Wisconsin. The Cornhuskers looked physical and capable in their best offensive game of the season. They are riding high with a ton of momentum. So this is a really interesting one. Phil, how do you see this one playing out?
I got Iowa big. I don't think that Nebraska can come in and do anything, especially it being at Kinnick.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson, the guy's terrifying. I mean, honestly, like going into the Ohio State-Iowa game earlier in the season, he was scaring the crap out of me.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
I don't trust any. I mean, I think Holgorsen at Nebraska is going to be something. I think there's something there, right. But I just don't think it's going to click just yet. And I mean, honestly, I think they have the talent. I just don't think any of it's refined on offense. And I just don't trust Nebraska at all. I had them early in the season actually being contenders, probably looking at 9-10 wins. And now I'm just like, no, that team's bad. That's a bad team over there. I think the home field, Kinnick, I mean, Kinnick's one of the hardest places to play.
Kinnick at night, too. Kinnick at night.
Weather could get goofy.
It's supposed to be really cold. Like, it's supposed to be maybe the coldest game in the history of Kinnick Stadium. And I think that's an advantage for Iowa, because I think Iowa's more used to the cold than Nebraska is.
Oh, yeah. Iowa by a couple scores, maybe more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'm with you. For me, it comes down to how does Frosh QB Dylan Raiola do for Nebraska? Can the Cornhuskers stop the run or slow it down at all? Because if Iowa can run this consistently, this is going to be game over. When Caleb Johnson goes off, Iowa's awfully tough to stop. Nebraska's pretty decent on defense, so it's possible they slow him down at least for a while. But I just don't think against a good Iowa defense that Dylan Raiola makes enough plays. And I think Iowa successfully baits him into an interception or 3 and just gets him to look like a true Frosh doing true Frosh stuff. So Raiola's really has a lot of potential. He's looked really good at times this year, but he throws, like a lot of young quarterbacks, he throws way too many picks and turnover-worthy balls. So against Iowa, those will become interceptions. I feel like last week was an emotional win for Nebraska. I think it took 8 years. So getting to a bowl game has been such a struggle for them that I think there's a letdown early in this game. I think we see them not play with a lot of intensity early, and you don't want to do that against Iowa, because if Iowa gets a 2-score lead, it's going to be awfully tough for Nebraska to come back and win. Games at Kinnick, I think Caleb Johnson goes for 150-plus yards in his last game in Iowa City. So I've got the Iowa Hawkeyes 27, the Nebraska Cornhuskers 17.
I think they're going to ride Caleb pretty hard. I think easily you can see at the end of that game he's got 1,700 yards on the season. Yeah. So I think I'm going to say over 150. So
over 150, yeah.
I don't know, man. He's terrifying, and Nebraska's defense isn't that stingy right now.
Yeah, he's special for sure. And Nebraska's defense is not. They've had their moments this year, but it hasn't been as consistent as it was, say, last year. Yeah. All right. Now, next up, we got a big one, a game that people just call the game. The rest of these games we played on Saturday, November 30th. We have the 6-5 Michigan Wolverines
How about
heading to
that?
Columbus, take on the 10-1, number 2 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. This is an 11 a.m. game on Fox, the big noon game. The line is Ohio State by 21. Ryan Day needs to win Saturday to keep his job, full stop.
Absolutely.
After 3 consecutive losses to Michigan, now his team is ranked number 2 in the land, while Michigan is just 6-5. Michigan's entire offense is based around running the ball, but Ohio State has the best run defense in America. That said, Michigan QB Davis Warren had his best performance of the season last week against Northwestern. The Wolverines will need Warren to have another efficient, explosive day if Michigan's going to have any chance on Saturday. So can Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards get into space? Edwards has made a lot of big plays in this series. Does he have any magic left for Saturday? The problem, Phil, is that this is the best Ohio State defense we've seen in a long time.
I think it's the best defense in the last 5 years.
It could be. The Silver Bullets are back in a big way this year. They're fierce. They are everywhere. They have difference makers at every level who make plays all the time. And Ohio State on offense has quite simply the best set of skill players in the country, with wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, plus the depth at wide receiver is crazy. And then the running backs, Henderson and Judkins. So, Phil, how do you see this one breaking down between your Buckeyes and that team up north?
I mean, obviously, I think we win. I don't trust that 20 line or 21 point line at all. I think this game.
Really?
I think this game could be close, at least for the first half. We've been close in a lot of games in the first half this year.
Sure.
Closer trailing. This game means a lot. It means a lot to them. You got a lot of players, especially defensively on Michigan, that team up north that are coming back, and they're legitimately. This is a lot of those guys came back for this, right? Like this isn't like Donovan Edwards scorched us 2 years ago at the shoe.
We were there.
We were there, me and you. I think you can throw out anything. I wouldn't put money on this game. I wouldn't put money for anybody to cover. I wouldn't put money on the win. I just want to watch it. I think it's gonna be great. I think it's important. I think Day's got a lot of the stress of the big game. I think even the 1 point loss was kind of devastating to Oregon at the time, but I think he's learned from that. We've had 2 more. I think this is a big game. I mean, this is bigger than all 3 of those games to us. It's that important. I mean, I would take a loss right away in the playoff just to win this game if I had to pick. I do not like it. I think you've been there. You've seen what happens when they lose at home. It's not pretty. The first time since I think 2002 that happened, or no, 2004, I believe was the last time they went to the shoe and played. I think you're going to see the same thing you've seen: a balanced attack at run. Travion, Quinshawn, both are. It's nothing explosive. You might see a couple big runs, but nothing crazy. No big yard gainers for either of those guys. And I just think it's going to come down to. I think it's going to come down to our defense is just so good they're going to stifle them. I think it's going to be lower scoring than people think. I think we're going to get 35 maybe.
Okay.
I'm saying 35-20, but I think it's going to be closely.
Interesting. That sounds like a much more interesting game than the one I see. I think it'll be close for a quarter. But I just don't think it's going to be close for any longer than that. Michigan just isn't equipped to consistently move the ball against this elite Buckeye defense. And I think once the Buckeyes, they might have a scripted drive for a touchdown. They might have a trick play or something lined up that might work. But once they run out of their little bag of tricks, I just don't think it's going to go very well. And Davis Warren, I just don't think is good enough to make up for the fact that Michigan doesn't have any receivers that scare you outside of tight end Colston Loveland. And while Loveland is great, he's not enough to keep up with Ohio State by himself.
Michigan doesn't have receivers and they don't have a quarterback. Let's just be honest.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, they missed, and but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be. I mean, I guarantee you, just knowing this rivalry more than anything else, any other sport, anything else I watch, anything else I care about in sports, that those guys are going to be as prepared as they've been in all season. This is their national championship. We're going to get their best game, and you got guys on that team who've taken us down the last 3 years. And I just think I hope you're right. I do. Like I said, I think I'm looking for a big game out of Mech, and I think Will Howard has progressed as nicely as a guy could want a quarterback to progress through the season. You know, especially like being new to it, learning it just 1 year. I think that Indiana game was like the chef's kiss for what he's done already. Every time he makes a mistake, he learns from it, which is impressive. But that doesn't mean. I mean, like I said, I just never trust it. I always think it's going to be closer. I've been there when. I mean, the only blowout I've ever really seen in this game, like big blowout, was probably 2018. You know,
right? Yeah.
So even it's just close. I think it's just going to be close. I think it's going to be. I mean, I don't know what the weather is. It looks like it could be rainy, but it doesn't seem like Howard has any problem throwing in the rain. But that might mean they rely a lot on Donovan Edwards to run the ball for them. If he's on, it could be troublesome. I don't think we're going to lose. I just think it's going to be closer than people think.
That's fair. I respect your opinion. I think Ryan Day's out for blood here. I think Day has been embarrassed by Michigan in the past. This year, he's got the better team. He knows he's got the better team. I think he's going to run up the score as much as possible.
I mean, I'd like him to lay 70 on him.
Yeah.
I'd like him to lay 70 on him. I just don't. And I don't even know if he hasn't really done it this year. I think going in for that last score last week kind of showed that he's getting there. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing he has to do. I think we're in a little bit different situation. He doesn't have to win big. There's nothing, there's no reason.
He doesn't have to, but the fan base will love it if he does.
Yeah. And if for some reason he lays an egg for a fourth time in a row, I think I'd say screw the playoff, get rid of him after the game.
Oh, yeah. Easily. No, if he loses, he's getting fired. I mean, I said that. That's the first thing I said, and I stand by that. But
I mean, you were there 2 years ago and would call me insane when I'd be like, we need to get rid of this guy. We need to get rid of this guy. He can't win the big game. And you saw it. You saw it you saw it on High Street. You saw it on
He froze up.
You heard the fan base talking. And that's how important this game is. If he loses this game, he's done. Might as well pack up and leave. In my opinion.
No, I agree with you. That he needs to win to keep his job. I think he will. I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes 41, the Michigan Wolverines 10.
So that would be absolutely superb.
We'll see who was right. I'll be curious to see if the game is closer, like whose version of the game is more on point. But I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to watch that game every single year. It's as good as it gets. The hate is palpable. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So next up, we have the 8-3, number 23, Illinois Illini, going to Evanston to take on the 4-7 Northwestern Wildcats. It's the 2:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is Illinois by 7.5. So Illinois has a chance for its first 9-win season since the 2007 team that went 9-4 on the way to the Rose Bowl. The Illini squeezed out a 38-31 victory at Rutgers last week with a late touchdown pass in which Brett Bielema first sent out his field goal team, and then didn't, went deep, got basically out-coached Greg Schiano and stole one from him. Northwestern has been outscored 81-13 the past 2 games. It hasn't been looking good for the Wildcats. QB Jack Lausch just hasn't been it. I think I was hoping to see him improve as the year goes on, but he just hasn't really improved very much, and I kind of don't think he's the guy. I think Northwestern has to move in a different direction and find a different quarterback for next year. But I think the big question here is, can Northwestern secondary slow down Illinois star receiver Pat Bryant at all? Bryant was Big Ten co-offensive player of the week after setting a career high with 197 yards receiving last week. The winning touchdown was his third in the final minute or overtime this season. tops in the nation. So Pat Bryant is fantastic. He's one of the best receivers, most underrated receivers in the Big Ten. And I just wonder, Illinois' Luke Altmaier has been playing better and better. He's not great, but he's very good. He's got some legs. He makes good decisions. Last year, he threw too many picks, but this year he's got 20 touchdowns to just 3 picks. So that's really impressive. And like I said, Jack Loush for Northwestern, I just don't think he's the guy. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns this year. And it's just, I don't know, man. There's no good vibes coming out of Northwestern. There's nothing they can hang their hat on. They have a couple good receivers, but they can't really get them the ball. They can't run the ball, and the defense looks really slow. So how do you see this one breaking down?
Easy. Illinois is going to have 9 wins. Illinois is superior. I think they're maybe the third best team in the Big Ten. Sometimes they play like it. I honestly think they're ranked way too low. I think they should be in the conversation right now. If you're going to put Alabama in the conversation for a playoff, I think Illinois should be in that conversation.
Absolutely.
They're playing
three losses in the Big Ten, and they're all, none of them are bad losses at all. In fact, there are losses to 2 top 5 teams, and then also a bowl team in Minnesota. So you can't, Illinois has been very impressive this year.
I think they have one of the top 5 coaches in the Big Ten. I just think it's a no-brainer. It's going to be Illinois by a lot. Well, maybe not quite. It's at Wrigley, right? So maybe not quite as much. Maybe that, it always seems like those are lower scoring games than you'd like. But yeah.
I just think Northwestern's down bad. I think that their defense tries its best, and Xander Mueller at linebacker is a really good player, but they just don't have enough tools around him, and their offense is a total mess. And I don't think Northwestern's going to be able to move the ball hardly at all against what's a pretty good Illinois defense. So I've got the Illinois Illini 31, the Northwestern Wildcats 13.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I'd say 38-10.
Yeah.
I think Northwestern's sad. A program that has been good every 2-3 years under Fitz, and now, had a special season after they lost him, but I think it's I just think they're in some kind of rebuild. They can't even see daylight right now there. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I still think David Braun's a good coach. I was impressed by what he did last year, winning 8 games.
Oh, absolutely.
Beating Utah in the bowl game, all that kind of stuff. But, it's tough. Northwestern's the toughest job in the Big Ten. It is. And, I think it's just going to take a couple years for him to recruit to the system he needs to be able to be a little more competitive. Yeah. All right, moving on. We have the 4-7 Maryland Terrapins heading to State College to take on the 10-1, number 4 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is Penn State by 25.5. I don't have a lot to say about this one. James Franklin was once the coach in waiting at Maryland. He didn't get the job, and he's never forgiven them for that, and he brings it up every time they play. Franklin makes a point of destroying Maryland every time he sees them on the gridiron. Also, Penn State needs to play for style points. There are a lot of helmet school worshiping media types who desperately want Notre Dame to jump Penn State in the college football playoff rankings. Penn State is the better team with the better resume, but if Notre Dame whips USC, there will be a lot of knuckleheads clamoring for them to usurp Penn State in the rankings. James Franklin knows this. And I think James Franklin is going to score as much as humanly possible in order to make his team look good to the playoff committee. As for Maryland, they're a mess. They have the worst secondary in the Big Ten. They can't stop the run either. QB Billy Edwards got hurt last game. Ty Felton and Caden Prather are great receivers, but Maryland's a mess. They're bad on the line of scrimmage. And I think if they get behind early, they quit in this game. So I've got the Penn State Nittany Lions 56, the Maryland Terrapins 13. Phil, how do you think this one goes?
My first thought is can we get Penn State a better last matchup of the season than Maryland, please?
Yeah, it's a little underwhelming.
The one that would, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be 50 points. It's gonna be a big win for Penn State. I don't know if people might want Notre Dame at that 4 spot, but what does it even matter for Notre Dame to be at the 4 spot? It's not like they get a bye anyways. They have to play,
No, that's a good point.
So,
but you get a better seeding versus you get to play a lower seed in the playoff.
Yeah, true.
And I think that's a big deal. So I do think, it's a difference, between playing like a team from the ACC and a team from the SEC, could be that kind of thing.
I mean, I don't think this is even a question. Pretty simple. Penn State by a lot.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on from that game, what do you think it's time to fire Mike Locksley, or do you think he deserves more time?
Oh no, he needs more time. He hasn't been terrible. He's been at times mediocre. I wouldn't say he's an awful coach. And I think you give him a couple more seasons.
Sure.
I mean, I think that Maryland team was impressive. And I mean, obviously they have more talent, especially in offense. But I think you got to give him a little bit. I think you got to give him a couple seasons, see what he can bring in there, especially with Apparently, I was in Maryland earlier this year talking to a lot of Maryland fans, and they're talking like that Maryland is going to start dumping big money into NIL. So,
sure,
we'll see if that's true or not. But I mean, if that's the case, we get some good transfers, you could turn it around there.
Yeah, he needs to find the next Leah Tagovailoa and be able to sell that to everybody.
Yeah,
for sure, because that's his whole thing is having a dynamic passing game. So he needs to, find the guy who can be that star quarterback. All right. Moving on, we have the 10-1, number 5 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish at the 6-5 USC Trojans. It's a 2:30 p.m. game on CBS. Cue the horns, and the line is Notre Dame by 7.5. So USC secured bowl eligibility by beating UCLA last week. They did it behind a strong defense and running game. However, new QB Jade Maeva continues to be a little erratic throwing the ball as he missed a simple wide-open 3-yard touchdown pass in the win over UCLA and drive they ended up settling for a field goal. Maeva's really good with his legs, but his passing is wildly inconsistent. He throws a lot of turnover-worthy balls. That could be a problem against the number 2 scoring defense in the country in Notre Dame. USC has a great running back in Woody Marks and great speed at wide receiver, but can they run the ball effectively against the Irish? If they can't, it's going to be a long day because Maeva just isn't a consistent passer. But Maeva is a threat in the running game. So if USC can utilize him as a running threat, maybe that opens up lanes for star running back Woody Marks. On the flip side, Notre Dame QB Riley Leonard's having a decent year. He's not the most effective passer, but he is completing 65% of his passes for the year for 7.1 yards per attempt, 14 TDs, just 4 picks. Leonard's old reliable. He has almost 700 yards rushing on the season, and Notre Dame's offense is predicated on the threat Leonard poses as a runner, which opens things up for running backs Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. I really want to pick USC to get the upset here, but while both teams run the ball, Notre Dame, I think, just has more options in their running game, and I think they're better on the line of scrimmage. Phil, how do you see this one breaking down?
Notre Dame. And I think, the NIU loss is bad, right? But let's be honest. We could be looking at the second best team in the country right here. We don't know.
Second best?
Could be. They're really good, and their defense is stout. I feel like that's a winning formula. Sadly, with Notre Dame, until they join a conference, if they ever join a conference, we're not going to really know because the schedule's getting weaker as the conference realignment kind of takes shape. But
they played a really soft schedule this year.
USC had a tough time against some not so great Big Ten teams this year. I do not see them doing anything against Notre Dame. It'll be interesting to see how full that stadium is, even for this game too. Notice a trend this year that it's been, never quite as full as you think a USC stadium should be, but it's been pretty sparse. So,
super sparse.
No crowd involvement. I got Notre Dame in this one by a couple scores.
Yeah, devil's advocate, the advantage for USC is that Notre Dame's wide receivers aren't very impressive. There's nobody who really scares you. So if you can stack the box and tackle in space, you have a chance to shut down this Irish offense. But I just don't trust, even if they do that, I just don't trust USC quarterback Jaden Maeva. If Miller Moss was still playing, I think USC would have a chance in this game. But in my opinion, Maeva is going to throw multiple interceptions. I believe Notre Dame will score on short fields, and that'll be the difference. So I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 31, the USC Trojans 17.
Yeah, that's fair. And the thing about, going back to their receivers don't make big catches, but Riley Leonard doesn't make mistakes.
Yep.
He doesn't. I mean, he's not going to blow you away. There's nothing on his stat line that's like excessively great, except for the fact that he doesn't throw a lot of picks and he doesn't throw it to the wrong spot that often. So there's no way. USC, just a bad year for them. Lincoln Riley needs to do some soul searching. I don't think he does. I don't think he can coach in the Big Ten. I think he's realizing that pretty quick. I called out USC at the beginning of the season and said that they weren't going to be competitive in this conference. And I do not think they'll be competitive against one of the best teams in the country. Notre Dame, a bad loss can creep up on you. It was ugly. It was kind of laughable on the joke, but that team is good.
Yes.
I can't wait to see them play somebody, of equal caliber.
Yeah, no, Notre Dame's very good. Lincoln Riley, I'm with you so far. He failed miserably this year, and it took him forever to learn the lesson that he should have learned in September, which is that Woody Marks was the strength of the team, and he needed to ride Woody Marks. But instead of doing that, he wanted to get cute like he always does with the passing game. And at Oklahoma, he could do that because he always had superior athletes. In the Big Ten, everybody's got great athletes. And so you just can't get away with that kind of stuff anymore. So, yeah, I think, USC needs a new quarterback. They need their coach to learn how to make better decisions in game.
Or a new coach.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying they're not getting rid of him this year. So Lincoln Riley he's got to have a really busy offseason learning how to do better and try to do better in a conference where every week is tough.
Yes.
All right. Moving right along. We have the 6-5 Rutgers Scarlet Knights playing in East Lansing against the 5-6 Michigan State Spartans. It's a 2:30 p.m. game on FS1. The line is Sparty by 1.5. This is a fascinating game. Jonathan Smith has done a decent job in year one at Michigan State, but his offense has been inconsistent and his defense has not recorded a sack in 6 games. The natives are getting restless. As for Rutgers, they are bowl eligible and playing with house money. This game, to me, comes down to who runs the ball better. For Sparty, running backs K'Ron Lynch-Adams and Nate Carter have combined for over 1,000 yards this year. For Rutgers, star running back Kyle Monangai has 1,150 yards rushing this year by himself. Michigan State QB Aiden Childs makes big plays, but like a lot of young quarterbacks, he also throws a ton of picks. For Sparty to be successful, he needs to limit those mistakes and get the ball to star Frost receiver Nick Marsh and also to vet Montori Foster. Rutgers has the better defense, but they've been inconsistent this year. That said, they've gotten healthier and rounded into form in recent weeks. Phil, how do you see this one breaking down?
Rutgers, they're too good. They're too good for what Michigan State's putting out there. Michigan State showed signs of getting better, and I hope they do, but I just don't think I think Rutgers is a better team. I think Rutgers is going to probably double up on them. I'd say 35-17, something like that.
Oh, interesting. I don't think it's going to be that level of blowout, but I am with you. Rutgers is the better team. They're better on the line of scrimmage. They have the best player on either team in Kyle Monangai, which I think matters. And I trust the Rutgers defense a lot more than the Michigan State defense. It worried me when Sparty gave up that lead against Purdue last week, and Purdue did a lot offensively, and Purdue is not a team that's been able to do a lot offensively this year. So I do think the wrong team is favored here. I would not have Michigan State favored. That stat about not getting a sack, I think that's the key, because Ethan Kaliakmanis, if you pressure him, is not very good. But if you give him all day to just sit back there and throw it to whoever he wants, he can make plays. So I think the fact that Sparty and new DC Joe Rossi have not been able to get pressure on the quarterback, I think that's going to be the difference in this game. And also just the running of Kyle Monangai. So, yeah, I have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights 31, and the Michigan State Spartans 20.
Fair. We're pretty close there. I just think, I think if you give Ethan time, he makes plays. When he gets
does.
rushed,
if you give him enough time, and he's gotten better than he used to be and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. All right, moving on to the next game. We have the 6-5 Fresno State Bulldogs going to play at the 4-7 UCLA Bruins. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. Line is UCLA by 9.5. Fresno State is bowl eligible despite the fact that they lost head coach Jeff Tedford, who stepped away from the team in August due to health issues. Fresno State running back Bryson Donaldson needs to be effective for the Bulldogs to have a chance in this one, in my opinion. We know Fresno State can pass the ball, and QB Mikey Keene has been playing his best ball over the past month with 9 TDs to just 2 picks, and he's got a 70% completion percentage for the season, which is the second best in school history. For UCLA, wide receiver J. Michael Sturdivant has been inconsistent this year, but when he's been on, he's been big. He had 5 catches for 117 yards against USC last week. He can create explosive plays, and if USC is going to win, they need to get him the ball. Also, TJ Harden at running back did pretty well last week. So if UCLA can run the ball, which they haven't been able to do in very many games this year, but when they can, it's a big advantage for them. And against Fresno State, I think it's possible they're going to be able to run the ball. So, Phil, how do you see this one breaking down?
I think it's the second most evenly matched game on the slate this week.
Okay.
I think Fresno's really good. Always one of my favorite watches.
Oh, yeah. So fun to watch.
And I don't know. I mean, I want to see. I think what Deshaun Foster is going on at UCLA is going to be good. What's impressed me about that team this year is they've been in games they shouldn't have been in for a lot longer than they should. I mean, they don't win them, but even they've been in a lot of games that I thought, they shouldn't be there right now. Holding some leads in the halves.
They play hard. They play hard.
I'm going to say UCLA, but I don't think it's by much. I think under 7 for sure. I don't know. I can't even. It's hard because it's always hard when these a team like Fresno goes up against a team like UCLA. Probably second worst team in the Big Ten. Let's be honest. But are they really talent? I mean, are they really talent wise? Not really. I just think it's going to take a minute at UCLA, but I think UCLA wins this one close.
Yeah, I think UCLA has improved a lot as the years gone on. They got some wins in the Big Ten, and I think that's impressive that they were able to do that. I like Fresno State a lot. I like their passing game a lot. I just don't think they're going to be good enough at the line of scrimmage. And I also think that UCLA QB Ethan Garbers is a good player. And I think we'll see him play his best ball on Saturday. I think Fresno State will score points early, but that when that UCLA defense gets locked in, it will make it a lot harder in the second half for the Bulldogs to score points. So I've got the UCLA Bruins 24, the Fresno State Bulldogs 17.
Yeah, I think if Harden can move the ball at all, if he starts getting, downfield, it's gonna be really hard for that Fresno State defense too. If they can run the ball, it's gonna be over immediately, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. All right, next up we have the 1-10 Purdue Boilermakers going to Bloomington in state to take on their hated rivals, the 10-1, number 10 ranked Indiana Hoosiers. Sure, Indiana can reclaim the old Oaken Bucket for the first time since 2019 and sweep its trophy games for the first time since 2016. But there's a lot more at stake this time. A win would likely guarantee, and especially if they play well, guarantee Indiana a spot in the college football playoff. And if Ohio State somehow loses to Michigan, could put them in the Big Ten title game. Purdue, meanwhile, is playing for the trophy and pride as it tries to snap a 10-game losing streak in what could be Ryan Walters' final game with the Boilermakers. And it could be his last game. However, my sources are telling me that Ryan Walters is likely going to get one more year at Purdue to turn things around for whatever that's worth. For Purdue, the question is, to me, can they run the ball at all? They have to get running back Devin Mockabee going to have any chance in this one, I think. And can QB Hudson Card make enough plays in the passing game to make this interesting? Card has been up and down this year, but he rebounded last week with a career-high 342 yards and 1 TD, his best game against an FBS foe in 2024. He will need to replicate or improve on that this week to pull an upset. The problem is that Card's only truly reliable receiver is tight end Max Clare. And while Clare is very good, he's not Penn State's Tyler Warren good, where you can just build the whole offense around him. So I just worry. I also worry about Purdue. Yes, they've continued to play hard this year, but they get behind. They come out slow and get behind in every game, even the ones they've been competitive in. So I fear if Indiana gets ahead by a lot early, at some point, do the Boilermakers just quit out of frustration at what a rough year it's been? Indiana has a lot of weapons on offense. Curtis Rourke's having a great year at quarterback, although not a great game last week when he was under pressure all day. Elijah Surratt, Miles Crosp and Miles Price. I mean, they have, Indiana's 4 deep at receiver. They have 2 really good running backs. I just think that Indiana's better on the line of scrimmage, and they have the better skill players. And I have a feeling that Curt Cignetti is going to be on a mission to send a message to the College Football Playoff Committee that you better not leave us out. So I think this one's going to get out of hand.
I think Indiana's going to win, but I'm going to say this. Wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be something if they got upset?
Oh, man. That would be crazy.
I don't know, man. Something about I know our D is wonderful. It's, I think, the best in the country. Best in the country maybe the last 4 or 5 years. But Rourke if they could get pressure to Rourke, I think there could be. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. But it would be something. It'd be an all-timer, right?
Oh, all-time upset. It would be an all-time upset. It might single-handedly save Ryan Walters' job, even going 2-10 if he manages to wreck Indiana's dream season.
I mean, that's
endear him to Purdue fans.
That's the dream scenario. Your season's been just shit. But now we get to play. I mean, in this situation, a loss Indiana has no shot with a loss.
No, they're out for sure.
But I mean, I think Indiana's going to win. I'm just saying it would be so. I mean, we don't get that often, It's fun.
No, yeah. I mean, I would love for this to be an interesting game. I am rooting for Indiana. I do have a rooting interest there, but I think Indiana's going to be so angry, and I think Cignetti's going to be so focused, and he's going to have that team breathing fire. And I just wonder emotionally and mentally, where is Purdue at after losing 10 games in a row? So I think Indiana has all this confidence. Purdue doesn't have any. And I think this is going to be the ugliest game of the week. I've got the Indiana Hoosiers 63, the Purdue Boilermakers 7.
Yeah, late score too.
Oh, yeah. No, I think Cignetti is throwing it downfield in the fourth quarter. Yeah. I think he's trying. He's blitzing. He's doing he's not. There's going to be no let up. He's going to try to exercise some demons.
1-10, nothing to lose. Against 10-1, has to win. Love it.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be something if Cignetti had to eat that, huh?
Oh man, it would be one of the most inexplicable upsets in that I can remember.
Yeah, but
it would be ridiculous. No, I don't think it's gonna happen.
But it'd be cool if it did. I wouldn't mind seeing it happen.
You're not a fan of Curt Cignetti, are you?
No, not really. Don't like him. Don't like him at all. So
fair enough. Well, I hear what you're saying, and it would be something if this was a close game. But I think the Hoosiers. I think it's going to be over by the end of the first quarter. That's what I think. So we'll see. Well, but it's a rivalry. You never know. Maybe Hudson Card comes out hot. Maybe Max Clare, has a long touchdown early. Maybe they run a trick play or something, and things could happen. There's some turnovers. Something could happen, but I just don't think it's
probably not. But it'd be
probably
cool
not.
If it did. For me, I just enjoy watching that. That'd be the kind of suffering I would enjoy watching.
Right. All right. Last up, final game of the night. We have The 6-5 Washington Huskies heading to Eugene to take on the 11-0 number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks. This is a 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. The Here Comes Saturday night game, and the line is Oregon by 19.5. Both teams are coming off bye weeks. The Ducks' last game was a squeaker, a 16-13 victory at Wisconsin, in which I would say it's the worst game Oregon's played since early September. And that was a couple weeks ago. Well, Washington downed UCLA 31-19 in Seattle the night before. There's some quarterback controversy with Washington. Washington coach Jed Fish says he's picked a starting quarterback for the game against the Ducks, but he's not going to tell us who it is. Washington has used both Will Rogers and freshman Damon Williams situationally throughout the season, but Rogers has been the consistent starter. However, Rogers threw a pair of bad interceptions against UCLA, and Williams took over and helped Washington become bowl eligible. So the question is, first of all, who's taking the snaps? That's really interesting to me. Are they going to mix both quarterbacks? Are they going to go with one or the other? That'll be really interesting to watch. And then for Oregon's sake, Dan Lanning would not say whether wide receiver Tez Johnson, defensive end Jordan Birch, and offensive lineman Marcus Harper would play. All three were nursing injuries, but got a much needed rest last week during the bye, leading to speculation all three could return. Tez Johnson also had an Instagram post which implied he was back, so I'll be curious to see if he plays. He had previously injured his shoulder during Oregon's game at Michigan earlier this month. Lanning said about this one, quote, "Just like I've always told you guys, when guys are ready to be out there on the field, we'll see them," close quote. So Lanning's not giving up anything. Jed Fish, a lot of gamesmanship this week. Lanning has had a meteoric rise at Oregon, but he lost the Pac-12 title by losing to Washington twice last year, once in the regular season and once for the Pac-12 championship. So he kind of got the big game bugaboo off his back by beating Ohio State and Eugene earlier this year. But Washington has caused Oregon a lot of pain in recent years. And I got to believe that Oregon really wants to pay that back. Washington has done a pretty good job this year under first-year coach Jed Fish. Will Rogers has had his moments, although he's been up and down as quarterback, which is why he might be getting replaced. Jonah Coleman's a fantastic running back. They've got a nice pair of receivers out wide. But Oregon has the second best, next to Ohio State, and I would say it's very close, the second best set of skill players in the conference. They have unbelievable wide receivers. They have unbelievable running backs, and Dylan Gabriel is having a legit Heisman campaign at quarterback and will probably be a Heisman finalist. So how are you breaking down this rivalry game?
It's not 19 points. I think it's closer than 19 points.
Yeah?
I can't help but think about the last time I saw Oregon on the field. They needed everything to get past Wisconsin. I think you're looking at Washington, in my opinion, has already excelled this year. I think Oregon wins. They're undefeated going to the Big Ten title game. But I do think that I think it's closer. I think Washington might give them something for a little bit in this game. I think Jed Fish has done a phenomenal job. I think he's honestly, I didn't know he had it in him. I didn't see him being that effective. I mean, I think 6 wins already is a victory for these guys.
Yeah.
It's I didn't think they were going to get 4. So it's already, I don't think they're going to take down Oregon. I think Oregon's really good. I think Oregon's going to, like I said, I see a world in which Oregon and Ohio State play 3 times this year. I think they're the 2 best teams in the country. Maybe, like I said earlier, throw in Notre Dame in there as another one I think is high. Don't have a lot of respect for the teams in the SEC, but I think those 3 teams are the 3 best in the country.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's especially true if Tez Johnson's back. If Tez Johnson's back and you've got Stewart and you've got Holden and you've got Ferguson at tight end, and those guys are terrifying. They're terrifying. So Dylan Gabriel's been so good all year. He's been, even in the games where they haven't played as well, he's played pretty well for the most part. Yeah, I think they're going to exercise some demons. I hope you're right. I hope this is a close game, but I don't know, man. I just think Oregon's rested now. They had a couple weeks. That Wisconsin game was tough, but it was their 8th consecutive game without a bye. So they were pretty beaten down by the time they got there. And I think with both teams fresh, I think both teams play well early. I think Washington probably scores early a couple times on a scripted drive. Jonah Coleman, I think they can do some stuff with him. He's a tough matchup for anybody. But I don't know, man. I think Oregon's going to show why they're the number 1 ranked team in the country. So I've got the Oregon Ducks 38, the Washington Huskies 20.
Is there a little bit of you that thinks that maybe Oregon doesn't have to prove anything in this game? I think
they don't have to prove anything. They could win by 1 score and it wouldn't be. I don't think they have to prove it.
I mean, they could lose the game and it wouldn't matter, right?
Well, they're still making the Big Ten title game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would matter.
I think there's a little bit there too. But I mean, I think this, and I think in that scenario, if this game was at Washington, I'd say it could be really tight. I think Oregon's going to win. I think Washington's going to give them hell for a minute, though.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see. I hope you're right. Well, Phil, we got through all the games. Why don't you tell, Phil, what is your handle on Twitter again?
At Philip Lund.
So if you want to follow Phil, he's great for all things Big Ten and Buckeyes. It's at Philip Lund on Twitter. I am at AliBobwa26. That's AHLIBOBWA26. And then you can check out We Live for Saturday, also on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. Please let us know. Reach out how you're feeling about Rivalry Week, how you're feeling about your team. Comment on the video. Super curious to see how everyone's feeling about their teams going into the best week of the season. Have an awesome Rivalry Week. And Phil, before we get out of here, last question. Let's assume that Ohio State wins tomorrow or on Saturday. Who do you have in the rematch, Oregon-Ohio State in the Big Ten title game?
If we beat Michigan, I think we win everything. Yeah. I don't think we lose again. We won't lose another game. I think Ryan Day's, like I said, Ryan Day's proven it. I think that it's we next week is the season. We win that game, we're national champions. I'm just gonna call it right now.
I'm with you. I picked Ohio State to win the national title in August. I didn't feel good about that pick at parts of this year, but seeing the way Ohio State replaced those offensive linemen and still, played as well as they did against Indiana kind of showed me that I think this Buckeyes team is rounding into form at the right time. They're peaking at the right time. Will Howard's peaking at the right time. And I do think they're going to win and en route to a national title. So we'll see. It's going to be really exciting to watch. I can't wait to watch all these games this weekend. Certainly the game. Hopefully both our teams can get big rivalry wins that they desperately need. And thanks so much for doing this, Phil. Thanks for guest hosting. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we will see you all on the review episode after Rivalry Week.